Welcome back to another video. Today, I'm just going to be answering 10 questions that you guys have asked me. I have them written down right here, so we're just going to go ahead and jump right into the video. The first one is, how long did it take you to become consistently profitable? I'd say I started getting consistently profitable right around the 2.5-year mark, and honestly, I probably could have became consistent before that if I would have went the route getting a mentor and actually journaling earlier on into my journey, but I started journaling fairly late, and then I never really got a mentor, so that definitely slowed me down. But hey, I finally did become consistently profitable, and I'm going to keep it up. But I would say right around the 2.5-year mark. Now, one thing I can say is don't compare your journey to others. There's people that are getting profitable within a year, year and a half, and there's people that are on their 5th, 6th year that are still not profitable. So make sure you go at your own pace, find a good mentor, make sure you journal, and don't compare yourself to others. The second question is, how many hours a day do you spend trading? I usually trade 1 hour a day, sometimes 1.5 hours, but normally what I do is I'm looking at the charts for about an hour. That's 9:30 to 10:30, and then I normally hop off the live stream with the team. Maybe I'll leave my limit order to about 11 o'clock, but I'll set an alarm on my phone right around that 11 o'clock mark if I do have a limit order set, just to make sure I have enough time to delete it or to manage the trade if I do get in it. But I would say on average, just 1 hour a day. The third question is, what's the biggest mistake most beginners make? I think one of the biggest mistakes beginners make is not worrying about psychology enough. They only focus on strategy, but they don't focus enough time on psychology. And psychology is going to be huge when it comes to being a profitable trader. That's going to be what separates, honestly, a lot of unprofitable and profitable traders. You can have a solid strategy, but if you overtrade, over leverage, FOMO in, you don't manage your trades correctly, that sort of stuff, then it's going to make it hard to become profitable, even if you have a profitable strategy. So I think the biggest mistake a lot of traders make is they tend to forget to focus on psychology, and all they worry about is their strategy. That's a tip for you guys. If you guys are just getting started or something, worry about finding that profitable strategy, yes, but make sure you also dial in on psychology, because that's going to be one of the hardest things to master in order to become a profitable trader. The fourth question is, do I need a fancy setup to trade, or can I just use my phone/laptop? You can use your phone or laptop. It really doesn't matter. What's going to make it easier or harder on phones though is if the platform you use, like the broker, if they are phone friendly. Some brokers have apps, some you have to use the web versions, and the web versions aren't the best. So it really just depends for that, but you definitely can trade on your phone. I trade on my MacBook a lot, and honestly, the laptop works just fine. And then I have my PC back here, which works just fine, but you could definitely trade on your phone or laptop. You do not need a fancy setup like some people have, where they have like 6, 7 monitors. You don't need all that. Phone, laptop, 2 screens, even 1 screen on a PC will work just fine. The fifth question is, do I trade every single day? I don't trade every single day. I show up every single day, but that doesn't mean I'm going to place a trade every single day. If my setup presents itself, I'm taking a trade. If my setup does not present itself, I'm going to sit on my hands and it's a no trade day, and then I'll just come back tomorrow and see what the market can offer me. But I definitely show up every single day, unless it's like a bank holiday or something, but I don't place a trade every single day. The week that just passed, I only placed 1 trade, and that was on a Monday. I showed up every single day. The market only gave me 1 opportunity that lined up good enough for me to take. The sixth question is, how many trades do you take in a day/week? So when it comes to the week, like I just mentioned, I'll take a setup if it presents itself. If not, I'm not taking a trade. Last week was 1 trade. The week before, I think, was 2. Then I think the week before that was 4 trades. So it just depends. So when it comes to how many trades I place in a day, remember, I don't place a trade every single day, but when I do place a trade, it's only going to be 1 trade in a day. If I win, I don't want to give any of my profits back. If I lose, I don't want to risk losing even more. So that's why I only place 1 trade in a day when I do place a trade. I used to be that trader that placed 5, 10, 15 trades in a day, but for me, journaling and figuring out what was holding me back from becoming consistently profitable, one of those things that was holding me back was placing too many trades in a day. That's why now I only place literally 1 trade in a day when I do place a trade. 1 trade is all you need, to be honest. If I'm risking $500 and let's say I catch a 1-to-1, I made $500 that day. If I'm risking $500 and I caught a 1-to-2, that's a $1,000 day. If I'm risking $1,000 and I caught a 1-to-2, that's a $2,000 day. 1 trade is plenty when you're taking high probability setups. The next question is, how do you know when to enter a trade? So the way I enter a trade is I enter off levels of supply and levels of demand with multiple time frames and confluence. So what I'm looking for is valid levels of supply and demand with multiple time frames and confluence, and then I'm reading price action. I want to see what price is looking like when it's approaching those levels, and then I set my limit order, so I get in through a limit order. I don't ever enter at market order. I set the limit order at the level of supply or demand that I'm willing to enter off of, and then if it taps into that level, I'm taking it. If it does not tap into that level, I'm not going to be taking the trade, obviously. But that's how I know when to enter a trade, when there's levels of supply and demand with multiple time frames and confluence, and when price action's looking good when it's approaching that level. And then something I used to use a lot before, but I haven't been using it recently, is previous session highs and lows. I definitely recommend looking at previous session highs and lows. That's another confluence you can add to your charts. The next question is, how do you control your emotions while trading? So this is definitely hard, and it's something that a lot of beginner traders do struggle with. But controlling your emotions over time is going to come with just being in the market, right? Especially when it comes to journaling, live trading. You're going to see yourself making the same mistakes over and over and over again. And a lot of it's going to come from not being able to handle your emotions while trading. Like I mentioned earlier, the over trading, over leveraging, FOMOing in, all that sort of stuff, right? Really what helped me change and make sure I manage my emotions better while trading was journaling showed me what I was doing wrong, and I literally got sick of making the same mistakes over and over and over again, and I got sick of losing money, and I just wanted to become profitable. So I literally forced myself to not make those same mistakes. If I thought about it, I'm just shutting down the computer and I'm walking away. That's how I was able to start controlling my emotions while trading. For me now, it's pretty much easy. That's how I managed to only take one trade last week. I did not let my emotions get the best of me, and I only look for higher probability setups. But before, journal, figure out what your issue is, and when you live trade, make sure you do not give in to that emotion. You have to stay disciplined, and if you're thinking about entering that second or third trade, do not enter it. If you're thinking about over leveraging, don't over leverage. Shut down the computer, walk away. You'll thank yourself later. The last question, what's the hardest part about becoming profitable? The hardest part about becoming profitable is mastering the psychology part, because the strategy is easy to find. There's so many winning strategies out there. But the psychology part is definitely what's holding back traders from becoming profitable. I see a lot of them that's even been trading for 1, 2, 3 years, making the same mistakes over and over. And trust me, it took me a while to learn from my mistakes. But the thing is, you have to realize if you want to become profitable, you have to stop making the stupid mistakes that you're making over and over and over again. I know it's hard to not place another trade if you have a red trade. I know you want to end the day green, but those sort of things are going to keep you unprofitable. That's why I talk about journaling a lot, because journaling is going to show you what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, and then that journal is going to hold you accountable. Accountability is going to be what's going to make you profitable, because if you're making the same mistakes over and over and over again, but you're sitting here pointing fingers, oh, it's my strategy, it's not me, you're not going to be profitable. And I see traders do that time and time again, where they blame their losing trades, or they're blaming that they're not profitable on something totally irrelevant. And I've helped traders overcome that. A lot of traders will blame their strategy, blame the market, when in reality, it's their psychology and it's something they're doing that's keeping them unprofitable. And most of the time, it's literally over leveraging, over trading, or they're not waiting for their actual high probability setups, or when they get into the setup, they're not managing the trade correctly. They're either cutting their winners way too fast, and they're cutting their losers way too late because they keep moving their stop loss further and further away. That sort of stuff was the same thing that made it very, very hard for me to become profitable. That's how I can speak on these things, and that's what's keeping most people unprofitable. So the hardest thing for me and the hardest thing for most people is going to be psychology. Start dialing in and worry about psychology just as much as you did about your strategy, and you should start to see results. That was the 10 questions. I went through them pretty quick. I get asked these questions a lot, and if you guys want to live trade with me, or you just want to be able to ask me questions more often, make sure you join the group. I'll have the link in the description or the link in the bio. I live trade Monday through Friday, and I'm live Saturday doing an educational call, and then I go live Sunday doing a weekly market review, kind of where we go over the levels for the following week. So I'm live 7 days a week. I hope you guys liked the video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.